At the start of the fourth quarter, Colorado took its first lead of the night on a Shedeur touchdown pass to Javon Antonio. But after the score, Sanders chucked his mouthpiece into the ASU student section, and the Sun Devils took that personally. Each week, Arizona State forms its blueprint game plan and carries a box of tools for following the instructions for building a winning structure. Then once game day rolls around, it nails down to finding the right tool to perform each task. The grounds crew carries quite the equipment load to keep the Sun Devils' backyard in shape, including a broom, shovel, and many other larger items such as the grass mower and sand pro. Yet none of those tasks amount to the difficulty of maintaining the water that gives the field its luscious green color. On Monday morning, news broke that Arizona State Athletic Director Ray Anderson has resigned after nearly 10 years at the helm of the Sun Devils Athletics Department. Well, they call him prime time for a reason, Kevin. It seems like everywhere he goes, he is the center of attention, and he has caused all the lights to be placed on Colorado.
We'll start with the defensive bus. Just how clean was it last Saturday night against Washington?
Well, apparently the bus driver told Kenny Dillingham later on that it was the cleanest bus she's ever seen. The Pac-12's last dance is a doozy. And what is considered arguably the conference's best rivalry, number 3 Washington meets number 5 Oregon in the most high-stakes Pac-12 title game ever.
It was a dreadful day for Kenny Dillingham and the Arizona State football program as they were notified early Sunday morning by Athletic Director Ray Anderson that ASU will self-impose a 1-year postseason ban for the upcoming 2023 season.
Now, I'm no financial advisor, but looking at it right now, Dillingham's better off investing his trust in his defense than gambling on his offense hitting the jackpot.
Well, Ben, the quarterback's bullets aren't the only ammunition the Sun Devils have to avoid. The Cowboys have a barrel of gunpowder to power an explosive defense triggered by a ferocious front line of attack and a second line of defense starred by a monster linebacker / safety hybrid. Dillingham put it bluntly, they're very, very big. How big, you ask? Try an average of 285 pounds on the defensive line. If ASU can win the battle of the boots in the trenches, they then have to enter the shootout in the secondary, where big, jumbo-sized athlete safeties await them, as Dillingham described. We'll have to wait and see how the Sun Devils can work their way through this talented Oklahoma State farm. Thanks for that blast from the past, Max. Arizona State isn't just trying to pave a new era on the gridiron. After losing 3 of its best players in program history, the Sun Devils soccer squad has had some key pieces step up to put together the puzzle the trio left behind. That trend continued yesterday down in Tucson at the Arizona Classic when Syracuse transfer Flo Valencourt notched her first goal in maroon and gold in the top bin of the net to give ASU the 1-0 victory over Utah State. It's now been just over a month since the fall of the Pac-12, perhaps the wildest stretch of headlines in the history of collegiate athletics. But many are left confused. In Arizona State's case, why did things happen the way they happened? ASU President Michael Crow has long been one of the biggest supporters of the Pac-12 Conference and their commissioners, most notably Larry Scott, who is largely responsible for the conference's collapse. Scott's lack of experience in collegiate athletics resulted in several questionable decisions throughout his tenure. For example, creating the Pac-12 network without any media partners, or scheduling the majority of the conference's games that were televised nationally in the late slot. Hence, we have Pac-12 After Dark. Sometimes Pac-12 After Dawn, like last week's football game. Bottom line, small viewership, lack of big network interest. In the heat of the panic last month, new commissioner George Kliavkoff finally presented an Apple-backed streaming deal that, according to Crow, included a, quote, 23rd century Star Trek thing with unbelievable capability. That's a match made in heaven for a guy who has prided ASU as the nation's leader in innovation for 8 straight years. But the money wasn't there, and as appealing as it may have been for Crow, the pressure from fans and even the other schools on the move forced him to finally turn his back on the Pac by taking ASU to the Big 12. In the end, the only thing that anyone can be sure of in this day and age of collegiate athletics is that it's hunt or be hunted. The Big 12 shot its shot, and the Pac-12 was left dead in its tracks, and that's the way it is.
Getting to that point of the Super Regional against Oral Roberts, you played a big factor in that game one, having 2 home runs to lead the biggest comeback in Super Regional history. How would you put into words what that moment meant for you, not only for you, but just for the program as a whole. All you've known since you took over as commissioner is that the Corvallis Knights have won the West Coast League. What is your take on their championship success? You've played at Mount Hood CC, played now in the West Coast League. You've crossed paths with some pretty cool people, including Riku Nishida at Mount Hood CC. What was that like to see a star in the making before he flourished at Oregon? You also, not only just on the field, were given hard, you were giving back to the community as well, serving as a volunteer at your church and then also at youth basketball camps. How important is it for you to give back to the next generation? Joey going to Oregon State, you going to U of O. Is there any shot shooting every once in a while?
That's a lie, yes.
And after that, well, we all know what happened, the COVID shutdown and all of that. You ended up, spending some time starting an apple tree farm. How was that whole experience, and just what drove you to do that? So we got to check in since the pandemic. How have they done? How have they grown?
So they've been doing really well.
Both of those home runs came with 2 strikes and 2 outs. How do you have the confidence to be able to still lay on a good swing in that moment? You guys have had a slow offensive slump over these past 3 games, but you get the pregame message here from Joey, backs against the wall, knowing the pressure's on you for the playoff push. How much did that motivate you guys coming into this game?
Oh, I thought that motivated us hugely.
That's the dream, just to continue to play as long as you can. But I know you're a smart kid. You're valedictorian in high school, so I know you got your good head on your shoulders. When it's all said and done, whether that be 20 years down the line or 2, what's your plan to do after baseball?